Hi, everyone. So happy to see you all on this lovely Wednesday afternoon. My name is Shalonda Griffin, and I'm a Community Relations Coordinator here at Get to Life Michigan, where we honor life through donation. Firstly, I'd like to say Happy Donate Life Month. As many of you probably know, or maybe some of you don't know, April is National Donate Life Month. And during this time, we help raise awareness about donation. We encourage people to register as organ, eye, and tissue donors, and we honor those that have saved lives through the gift of donation. And I'd like to welcome you to Let's Talk Donor Families. That's going to be our live stream for today and our theme. So, signing up as a donor or deciding to donate your loved one's organs and tissues is the most generous, beautiful, and selfless gift that a person can ever give. Every person who chooses to become a donor increases the chances that a person on the waiting list will receive a life saving transplant. One organ donor has the potential to save 8 lives, and up to 75 people can have an improved quality of life with the gift of tissue and cornea donation. Now, I think most of us know the impact that donation has on the recipient. Those who receive a transplant are freed from dialysis. They're able to finally take a deep breath, or their vision is restored through the gift of cornea donation. But we don't always know the impact that donation can have on that donor family. Now, just last week, I got to spend some time with a donor family member, and she shared that while losing her loved one was the absolute worst day of her life, she felt a bit of comfort knowing that she would be able to help provide hope to those on the transplant list. Now, before we get started, if you've watched any of our live streams before, you know that we love questions and we love comments. So if you have any, please feel free to share them with us today. Also, feel free to share this video with any of your friends and family who may be watching. We would love you for that. Now, today, I am honored to have 3 donor families here with me today. So please allow me to introduce Rachel Klaus, John Edmond, and Patty Woodside. Hi, everyone. How are you?
Hi, Shalonda.
Well,
Doing well, thanks.
Good. Thank you all so much for being here today. I'm just so honored to be in this space with all of you today. We're going to start off this conversation with Rachel, and then we're going to come back and talk to John and Patty. So we'll just keep you behind screen for a little bit, but we can't wait to hear what you all have to say. So, Rachel, thank you so much for being here today. How's your day going?
It's going pretty well. Thanks for having me.
Of course, thank you. Now, your husband William was a tissue donor, but before we get into that, tell me a little bit about William. What kind of person was he?
Uh, Will was a very giving person, very hard worker, and he was a handyman, kind of a jack of all trades. He would actually joke, say he was jack of all trades, master of none, but he was quite the master at a lot. And our joke was always, where there's a will, there's a way, and we have a will. He would find a way to, fix anything or build anything. Um, he loved spending time with the kids. Um, and, we just, we had a good time together and, 3 kids, a very busy life.
Hmm. How long were you married?
We were married for 13 years.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Together
That's
for 15.
yes, these are lovely pictures. Thank you so much for sharing them with us
Thank you.
today. Now, if you're comfortable, can you please share what led to William becoming a donor?
Um, so donation has been something that we always kind of talked about. And actually, Will's story sort of starts with our oldest daughter, Sarah's story. In December 2019, Sarah passed away at 12 years old from viral myocarditis. And unfortunately, because of how the disease ravaged her body and the medications they had to use, we weren't able to donate any organs or tissue from her. And then with Will, we knew both of us talked heavily about being donors and how that was important to us, and should anything happen, to make sure that we were able to donate whatever we could. And on July 2nd, 2021, Will lost his battle with mental illness and took his life.
Mhm.
And after he was pronounced at the hospital, they they asked me, if I was interested in them contacting Gift of Life Michigan, and I immediately said yes.
Okay. Well, I'd like to give you my condolences on both the loss of your daughter and the loss of Will. That has to be really hard. I'm very sorry to hear that. So, how many lives did Will improve?
I'm not sure the total of lives. I have heard from one recipient, so I know at least for that recipient, he has impacted their life in a very positive way. They're now able to live a better life and spend more time with their children. So that was wonderful to hear from them. But I don't know exactly how many he's impacted at this point.
Okay. We have a Facebook user who says that they also love your photos. They are very
Thank you.
beautiful. Now, you have children. How old are your other children? Can you share that with us, please?
So Lexi is 13, almost 14, and Charlie is 4. He'll be 5 in about 2 weeks.
Okay. So I take it, or at least your oldest daughter, she knows that her father was a donor. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Lexi, she knows he was a donor. She understands what that means and what goes into it. Charlie also knows that Daddy was a donor, but he doesn't quite understand. So it's something we talk about. Gift of Life Michigan was kind enough to send teddy bears to the kids, after and a coin commemorating Will's donation. And so Charlie, we call that Hero Bear because we know that even though Daddy's gone, because he's an organ donor, he's a hero.
Yes, yes, he was. Now, you said Lexi knows that her dad was a donor, and she obviously understands what that means because of her age. So, what are her thoughts and feelings about that? Has she shared how she feels about that with you?
She thinks the idea of donation is really cool. She's a teenager, so getting the emotions out of her is iffy. Um, but she does think that it's really cool, and I read to her the letter that we received from the recipient of one of Will's tendons, and she thought that it was really nice to hear from them, and she was glad to know um, that their life is going to be better, and Lexi has one of the bracelets that Gift of Life also sent, so she wears that every day. And so her friends have commented on, the Donate Life bracelet. So she shares with them, why she wears that and how that came to be. So she's impacting lives, I think, more than she thinks that she is.
That's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. So I'm going to go back to the comments again. It's someone said that they didn't know that Gift of Life sends bears to donors' kids. That's really great. I agree as well. We do send out things such as teddy bears. There are books that can help explain the process to people. We recently just partnered with some other of our sister organizations, and we had a comfort blanket party. Those blankets go to families who recently lost loved ones who became donors. Our aftercare department does a really great job of taking care of donor
Yeah,
families.
they do. It's amazing.
Yes. Now, the grieving process takes time, obviously, and there's no rush, and I encourage everyone to take their time. But would you like to connect with the recipients at some point in time?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, before losing your loved ones, is donation something that you ever thought about before? Is it on your radar?
It was, growing up, one of my childhood friends and classmates, he was an organ recipient, when he was a baby, and so I had already always known about that, and then I saw, a friend of mine as an adult, her brother had cystic fibrosis, and he received a set of lungs from a donor, and that just seeing their stories and seeing how, um, you know, they went on to, be able to live, because of that gift, that just really was something that really drove it home for me, and it really impacted me. And like, yeah, I really want to do this because, and I'm not gonna lie, when I was younger, I was a little bit like, well, those are my organs. Like, you're not taking them when I'm gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I got older, I realized, yeah, but without those organs, my friend wouldn't have lived. My friend's brother wouldn't have had, more years with his children. And so it just really drove home like I want to be a donor. And then even Sarah, at the young age of 11, 12, heard about donation and really thought that that was something, and she was very interested in it. She's like, I want to be an organ donor. And, not every 12-year-old is going to say, hey, I want to be an organ donor. But it was really neat that she realized the value of it.
Mhm. So we have another comment that says, thank you so much for your donation. And I would like to second that. While we are very sorry about the loss of both your daughter and your husband, thank you so much for your selfless gift of donation and helping improve the life of others through tissue donation. And also just thank you for considering it with your daughter as well. It just shows that there are a lot of gracious, selfless, caring, compassionate people who make everything work. So thank you so very much, Rachel.
My pleasure.
Okay. Now we're going to come back to Rachel a little later, but right now I'd like to bring John Edmond into the conversation. Hi, John.
Hello, how you doing? Thanks for
Um,
having me.
you're very welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Now, John, your daughter Amaya was an organ donor. Now, before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about Amaya? What was it like being her dad?
Wow. Number one, she Amaya was a giving and caring child. At 7 years old, she accomplished so much in her short life. It still amazes me the things that she had done here on Earth, along with the things that she had done um, once she passed away. But a little bit about her personality. She loved people. She had this uncanny ability to reach anyone. She called everybody her friend, and she had a little bit of sassiness to her, as you can kind of see there. But she just really, really loved people. My mother, her grandmother, they had a really huge bond. It reminded me of when I was a child and how close me and my mom used to be when I was her age. But she really loved flowers. She loved flowers. She loved the color purple. She loved butterflies. She loved to write in her journal. She loved to draw. Of course, like any other child, she loved to play outside, and she loved the fact that she had siblings. And she often wrote about um, wanting to have sisters. And she was a big sister to our oldest child, Julian, who's now 14, and her mother had an older son, Xavier, who's not my wife, but that she really took the responsibility of being older, or in her mind thought she was older than her brother. Her brother had special needs. So she just was a community baby, although, she had two homes, one here and one at her mother's house. That never stopped her from her journey and her legacy.
Mhm.
So she just really had a really clean and honest, joyful spirit about her.
You can really see that joyful spirit in these photos, especially the one on the right where she's smiling in the brown shirt. She's absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing these photos with us today.
Thank you.
Now, John, if you're comfortable, could you please share what led to Maya becoming a donor?
Sure. Well, Amaya unfortunately was shot and killed in a home invasion at her mother's house in July of 2010, July 23rd. Um, and that was the moment that changed my life forever. And I made a vow to Amaya that I would um, protect her legacy, and I would do any and everything to promote peace within our community. I've been a devout advocate against gun violence within my community. And, right then at that moment, from being in the hospital while she was on life support, um, I didn't know anything about the gift of life at the time. And my daughter died with her eyes open. And I tell people all the time to make sure that you look your children in the eye, because that's where the beauty of their soul is. And along with that vow, I stuck to it as hard as it was to let her go. I realized that there was a greater purpose, not only for her life, but for mine as well. So when I was introduced to the gift of life, it was almost like a blink of an eye decision. It was solely based on her personality. Again, I had no idea how the gift of life worked. Matter of fact, I call her the lady in the room. It was a representative from the gift of life, and she was talking to me about the program. And then, it's like a cartoon. I had a thought cloud pop out of my head, and I had made a decision just by, looking over her lifespan of those 7 years and how impactful this could be. But I never realized the true impact of organ donation um, until we got involved. So I chose. Her mother gave me the opportunity to run with it, and I did. She put her trust in me as her father, and it was the best, the greatest thing I could have ever done and seen with these two eyes. The amount of gratitude that the families have had. I've built relationships with those that have received, and it's been, God has truly, truly blessed me, truly blessed my family, and I cannot forget who He is and what He's done in this situation.
John, just wow, just thank you for those heartfelt and those beautiful words. Those are just so touching. I'm over here trying to hold it together.
Yeah.
I know that nothing prepares you for the death of a loved one, especially the death of a child, but was donation something that you ever thought of before? And not necessarily for Amaya, but just in general.
No, I was completely ignorant to it, like not knowing anything about it. Never thought, it never crossed my mind. We've experienced death in the family, but it had never it had never come up. And like I said, it was solely based on the type of personality that Amaya had. It's like, how could you not, pass along an opportunity for someone else to live? She loved people. She loved to help people. She loved to help people so much. It was almost like, sometimes you would have to tell Amaya, no, just relax, calm down. We got this. Because she was so ambitious and wanting to help all the time. So as a father, I felt the need to carry on that legacy, and I always will continue on to carry her legacy.
Mhm. Deborah Deering says, "Thank you, John, for sharing your amazing story."
Thank you.
Now, how many lives did Amaya save?
Amaya saved Amaya saved 5 people's lives through organ donation. And I tell people all this. I tell people this all the time, and I'm not a mathematician or anything like that, but she saved those 5 individuals. So those 5 individuals have families. So the number actually multiplies, it grows. So there's so many people that have been affected that it just blows my mind. Now I don't really know. The only number that I know is the 5 individuals, but those 5 individuals have families, and I'm sure they're very grateful from what I've
Mhm.
experienced, the gratitude from those individuals. And I can only imagine how those families feel that are supporting their loved ones.
Mhm. Now, you had the opportunity to meet one of her recipients. Can you tell us about Mike Lopez?
Yes, yes. Mike Lopez is, wow, look at him. He's he's family. I love Mike. And Mike he's been he's been the type of person to where he's done his research on, from the shooting incident all the way to the time that I met him. When I finally met him, it was unbelievable. We met a year later, and we met at a 3-on-3 keep the peace, stop the silence basketball tournament that we put on here in the city of Lansing. And when he came, I was in a crowd of people, and I could see him coming. Like, before I knew who he was, before I laid my eyes on him, I could tell it was him. Him and his family, they were approaching me, and when we laid eyes on each other for the first time, it was like when I hugged him, it was like I was holding on to Amaya, you know, and her spirit was with him, like it is with me. And there's been that there's been that connection between him and I and his family for a really long time. It's a bond that's inseparable, a bond that's put together by love and the love of God. You know, we both believe in God, which really enhances our relationship. And I just love Mike more than anything. So I'm extremely grateful. All the rest of the individuals, I've heard from everyone except um, the little boy who received Amaya's lungs, but everyone else I've heard from through letters. But Mike has been the one that I've actually been able to lay my eyes on and my hands on.
That's wonderful. Now, John, you have done such an amazing job of keeping Amaya's legacy alive. Can you please tell us about Amaya Elise Edmond Day?
Well, you know, here in the city of Lansing, back in I want to say 2013, because of the efforts that I've done within the community, um, being an advocate against gun violence and violence amongst everyone. Um, the city of Lansing City Council, they called a meeting and they made a vow that October 8th, 2013 was Amaya Elise Edmond Day. So I found out that it was only one day, but as big as her case has been here in Lansing, I met with the police chief at the time and one of the city council women, Patricia Spitzley, and we sat down and they agreed that through the efforts and promoting Amaya's legacy, that they wanted to honor her annually. So they asked me, to pick a date, and they gave me a certain amount of time, and I believe it was short notice, and I had to come up with May 31st. That was her birthday. So we went ahead and um, they wrote a resolution, and it is in the city of Lansing. And every year, annually, starting this year, we're going to honor her and honor all victims of homicide. And every year there'll be something different. So I also have a small support group. It's the Healing Hearts Project. We basically bring anyone in that's been victimized by violent crime. So next month, we'll have a big dinner to feed the community. And it's just going to be a very beautiful way to honor her life and her legacy.
John, thank you so much for sharing Amaya with us. Thank you so much for all of your efforts to make sure that this beautiful young girl is never forgotten. And she is continually not just improving life for people like Mike, she's improving life for people still here in 2022. So just thank you. You've done such an amazing job keeping her legacy alive.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Patty is up next. Patty Woodside, how are you today, my friend?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah,
Now,
thank
Patty,
you for the invitation.
of course, of course. Now, Patty, your daughter Leah was a donor. Now, before we get into that, just like I asked Patty or not Patty, but John and Miss Klaus, can you tell us what type of person Leah was? Tell us about her.
Well, Leah was very active and enjoyed sports. That was probably one of her key, pieces of her was skiing, playing basketball. She was very active in skateboarding, all of the things that we enjoyed watching her participate in. Um, she just loved life, loved living her life to the fullest, and music. She would have headphones on and would be dancing or singing to the dog. She was just so full of mischief and love. The one photograph there with her arms around her grandpa, she just loved her grandpa Ralph, and of course grandma. But she was just a very giving, generous, sweet soul.
Mm-hmm. Now, Patty, if you're comfortable, would you please share what led to Leah becoming a donor?
Yes. it's been a while now, 2001, she went to cross the street to board her school bus, and a driver violated those red lights. And when she ran the lights of the school bus, she hit Leah. Of course, in the morning, it's a little dark, and in November, it was also a little overcast. And so the kind of situation was that just the world stopped for me and her dad. Dad was at work. We worked opposite shifts, so somebody could be home in the evening and somebody would be home in the morning. And so I had to contact my husband. It was probably the hardest phone call to make. You don't send your child to school and think you're going to be making this phone call, but that's the way it was that morning. I did not tell him because I did not know conclusively at that point, because she was revived at the spot of the accident. And upon my husband coming home from work, we discovered that Leah was not going to make it. She was on life support when we arrived at the hospital.
I'm so very sorry to hear that. You have my deepest condolences. Now, Patty, I know that nothing prepares you for the death of a loved one, and especially the death of a child, but was donation something that you had ever thought about before? And not necessarily for Leah, but just in general.
We had talked about it. We have an older daughter, and it was just something that came up as a result of a conversation at church. There are always those questions that come up, and you pray about them. And hopefully, it had happened for us where Leah was just learning at 13 how important prayer is. She would draw, and she journaled and prayed. Things that go on in schools are often the topic of dinner time conversation. And so we had those conversations, not, ever thinking that we would be the family that would have to make those decisions. But so we had talked about it.
Okay. Now, what was Leah able to donate?
She donated both of her kidneys and her liver. So we know from letters that we had received after the donations, both kidneys went to Dad's, and her liver went to a mom who had 5 children. So that was a part of our healing, knowing that her donations helped the dads maintain that patriarchal position in the family for those children and their spouses. But for the mother, a mother's love and her nurturing for her 5 children, to receive Leah's liver was the greatest gift. And as a mother, you just are so warmed by that. And I think John alluded to that as well. When your heart is hurting, it begins to soar to a level that you cannot comprehend until you're at that place. But to know that Leah lives on is great comfort. And I will add, if I may, I know we're getting close on the time.
Go for it. Don't worry about the time.
Okay. I think it's important to know also, Gift of Life has an amazing quilt, or mini quilts, really. I have one in particular I call Leah's quilt. I think it's number 10. I don't know how many there are at Gift of Life in Michigan, but as you can see on my cornices, on my shades in this room, we quilt in this family. And so that was another form of grief. Um, it helped us through that grief by making, and we didn't make just one square in memorializing Leah. We made several. Our family was generous in their gifts of quilt squares, but often that's what brought true healing to the family, was going with Leah's quilt out into the community. Yes. And as our blessings grew, as Leah's legacy grew, that quilt has been shared at churches. It has been to a lot of places in Michigan, that we're just so glad that her little happy face is out there for people to see, that she just lives on. And her donation is truly a gift.
I've seen Leah's quilt in person, and you're right, it's absolutely beautiful. Donor families have the opportunity to make a quilt square for their loved one, so that we have them hanging in our offices at Gift of Life, so that we always remember why we do the work that we do. But we also take them out to some of our community events to share these beautiful donors with other people in our community, and to just let them know what a beautiful, wonderful gift these people gave. But that before they were donors, they were people who had, families and lives and folks who loved them. So thank you so much for providing not one, but two Leah Squares. Yes. Now let's bring both Rachel and John back onto the stage, please. And I have some final questions for the three of you. Now, as I've mentioned many times throughout this conversation, nothing ever prepares you for losing a loved one. Nothing at all. But if there's someone who's watching and they may be on the fence about donation, what's the one thing you want them to know? We'll start with Rachel, then John, and then back to Patty.
I would say please do it. If you're on the fence at all, fall over that edge onto the do it side. You will pass at about 11:30 on July 2nd, and about 4 a.m. July 3rd, I was speaking with Hannah from Gift of Life about donating, tissue, and you would think that would be like the absolute worst time, but it was like talking to a friend. It was very comfortable to talk to her. It was a very smooth process, and it didn't feel like, they just wanted Will's organs. It really felt like, hey, we're here to help you as well. So if that's anything that kind of scares you with donating, it's not scary at all.
Thank you. How about you, John?
I'll just simply say, consider the name, the gift of life. We've all been gifted with life. And if you have the opportunity to offer someone a gift, I would recommend doing it. It's a senseless act. It's the greatest thing that you could ever do. And I feel like it's honestly the most important. So, gift of life, you always get 2 thumbs up from me, with a great big heart behind it. And if you have compassion for others, it's something that you should definitely consider.
Thank you. And Miss Patty.
Well, John, you said it. There's that heart, right? Gift of Life is it's a healing for families who are able to talk about it openly. You never know. You don't think about that maybe at the time that you're talking about it, but I think those conversations are before are better to have than after. Knowing what each of your family members would like to do is beneficial. And to those that are waiting, um, gosh, we just don't know how impactful that is.
Mhm.
But I've been with Shalonda and others at farmers markets, and as I mentioned, churches. Shalonda has come to our church,
Mhm.
and I can't say enough about how healing it is for you after your loved one has donated. It's the beginning of a new story. And so I just encourage folks to get the little heart and have it on your driver's license.
Mhm.
Identify yourself.
Yes. Mary Jo, who is a liver recipient, says thank you to all of you for sharing your stories. Now, before we wrap up, is there anything else about Will or Maya or Leah that you'd like us to know?
There's a lot. There's a lot I could say,
Mhm.
but just know that um, in some of our more painful times, or some of yeah, the most painful times, um, we knew what our loved ones would want, and we knew that organ donation, was there, and it is nice to know that they live on. And we do love hearing from recipients. And if you are a recipient, we would love to hear from you. Um, just remember you know, they had families who loved them dearly,
Mhm.
and we want your family to still have you and be able to still love you dearly.
Mhm.
So,
Yes. Thank you for those words. Looking here at these comments, we have Deborah Deering who says, as an organ recipient, I thank you all. And then Sandy Hiller who says, thank you doesn't seem enough to say. I am a kidney recipient. And Kathy Warren says, each of your stories are so moving. Thank you for sharing your loved ones with us today.
Mhm.
And I echo those sentiments as well. Is there anything else anyone else would like to share?
I'd give you a little. I'd give you a little piece of what Amaya had also done prior to her leaving her earthly body. Amaya gave her life to Christ on May 2nd, 2010. She had a thirst to get to know Jesus, and she would ask. I didn't find this out until after she passed, but she asked my wife and my mother-in-law, "How do I get to heaven?" She asked this question in 2009. So in 2010, when she gave her life to Christ, that was something that she did all on her own. And it was her thirst and her ability to get to know Jesus Christ. So that was comforting for me to know as I asked questions to God, why, why my child, he quickly reminded me of why. And it was simple. He told me specifically that he put her in my life to bring me closer to him. So I'm very proud of my daughter. No, I didn't get a chance to see her graduate last year. I won't get a chance to see her get married, but I am comforted to know that she has a place in the kingdom of heaven. And I'm so glad and so grateful for the time that she shared on this earth. The 7 years that she shared has changed my life and so many other people's lives around her. So thank you.
Mhm. Thank you, John.
Mhm.
Thank you so very much. Our final comment here is from Mary Jo, who says, 20 years. I would have never gotten to meet some of my nieces and nephews if I would not have gotten a liver. So, Patty, Rachel, John, we thank you all so very much for your time today. We thank you for trusting and sharing Will and Amaya and Aaliyah with us. This is such an honor to be introduced to them all. So, thank you so very much. For those of you who are watching, we hope that you enjoyed today's live stream. If you have any questions about organ and tissue donation, or if you're interested in joining the Michigan Organ Donor Registry, we would like to encourage you to check your heart and find out if you are a registered organ donor. And if you are not, you can always sign up on our website, which which you can find at golm.org. Just takes a few minutes. And if you happen to be watching this and you live somewhere else that is not Michigan, you can always join the registry at registerme.org. So thank you all so much for your time today, and we will see you again next time. Bye-bye.